Hello and welcome to episode 439 of the Stacey West podcast, where people viewing at home have just caught me dancing to the theme tune. My name's Gary. I will be your host for the next hour, and I will be joined by Emily this evening. How are you?
Yeah, Gary, I'm very good, thank you. I'm feeling a year older from yesterday.
Oh, of course. Yes, happy birthday.
It's all right. It was yesterday. You got all the happy birthdays in yesterday. But yeah, I'm feeling older. That must be what happens. But yeah, apart from feeling a little bit aged, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not having that off you. I'm not. I don't take that. It'd be like Charlie coming on going, oh, I feel a little bit older. When you wake up in the morning and it's like a lottery as to which bit of your body aches more, then you'll know that you're old. Other than that, I'm not having it. Not from you. Still full of the excitement of youth, I would say.
Well, that's the thing. You see, now it was my 35th birthday yesterday, so I am now officially mid-30s. There's no arguing at 34. It's still early 30s. I'm mid-30s, and I think that, you know, got some lovely presents from friends and family yesterday, and I think that my kind of span of presents perfectly sums up your mid-30s. So, on the one hand, I got an electric guitar. You know, rock and roll, cool. Yeah. You know, electric guitar, that's cool, that's ace.
That is good. Yeah, that is a great present.
But then I also got a soup maker. So, which I did ask for, but I think that perfectly just shows you when you hit mid-30s, you're on the cusp of, soup makers and electric guitars. And I also made the mistake of looking up whether any of Lincoln's squad are older than me. And I think James Collins is 1 month older than me.
Why?
When that balance starts to tip, and Jack Wiltshire is a year younger than me. So when the coaching staff are younger than you, I think that's when it really hits you.
I remember the year when the players started to be younger than me. And it was 2010, Chris Fagan kind of year. So at that point, I was in 2010? 32. And it was at that point where I realized almost the whole squad. Yeah, I'm dealing with people here that were at primary school when I came out of secondary school. And like now I'm dealing with people who weren't born when I got my first job. It really does. It really does hit home, I'm afraid.
All I can say is I'm glad that we've started this kind of slightly modified recruitment policy of bringing in some experience, because otherwise I would have been in big trouble long ago, probably.
Well, we tried bringing in youth when we brought Charlie into the Stacey West podcast. And so, I felt that we needed some mid-30s experience. We've got it in Chris, but he's kind of broken, isn't he? He's like... did you ever watch Red Dwarf? You know, Crichton on Red Dwarf. It's like every so often Chris just starts glitching and saying numbers and stats, and you can't stop him. And you can kind of see steam coming out. It's like, somebody reset Chris. So we had to get somebody in the mid-30s who, one, knew about football, so that ruled Ben out, and two, doesn't glitch every so often, so that ruled Chris out. So, that was why we did it. I'm still the oldest at the Stacey West podcast. So, well, I went for a run today. I don't like to talk about it, as everybody knows, but for those listening at home, there will be a degree of surprise. I do actually run. It's really difficult at the minute. I'm miles and miles off my pace. And it was like where I live, as you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. And there's this strange phenomenon that when it's foggy, it'll be foggy in one bit that's kind of in a dip. And then in the next bit, it'll be clear. So I've got running. It was brilliant. And all of a sudden, I've run into this thick patch of fog. And it was actually quite frightening because I'm on a road, a 60-mile-an-hour road with no white lines. It's the Bluestone Heath Road, so it's wide enough for two cars, but there's no white lines. Cars absolutely tanking it, and at last minute, seeing me, luckily, because I'm so unfit, with just this massive red face and ginger beard, like huffing and puffing as I went past. So, yeah, it was quite nice to come in and get the fire lit. And obviously, I've cooked dinner for my good lady who's not very well, so I am literally the full package.
Yeah, well, yes, who can argue with that?
I would say most of the people I've come into contact with over the last 25 years But hey ho, one element of this is going to be a really odd segue, and it may come across wrong, and I don't know if I thought it out. But one element of the package that went right yesterday was getting to Luton Town for my first ever official media away trip. So it was a really special day, and I don't want to go on too much about that, but I'm going to probably a little bit later on in the show, where we're going to just talk. We've said we want to talk a little bit about Kennilworth Road, because I don't think there is a football experience in the country, certainly not one that I've ever experienced, that matches Kennilworth Road.
Yeah, it is a unique experience, isn't it? And I went to Luton. Was it on? Did we play them on New Year's Day a few seasons ago?
2018. Yeah.
So I remember going then, and sort of that was my first time, I think, there, and I was blown away by it. And just even from before you get into the ground and you see the turnstiles in between all these terraced houses, and you think, God, that would be handy for the match, wouldn't it, if you lived there?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really unique, quite novel experience, I think, going there.
What I thought is, if all the football grounds in the country decided they were going to play hide and seek, Luton have won, because it's kind of wedged itself. Because me and Dale came, so I went with my friend Dale Rouse, and we went quite an odd way. So we ended up coming up this kind of tracked bus lane, and all of a sudden it's like, well, the ground you could see it from miles off. You can see the floodlights, but when you actually get there, it's like, oh, that must be the ground, and it's kind of up on an embankment and away, and you can't see it from that side. You come across and round, and it's the away end, which is literally hidden amongst a load of houses. And then we're walking down a street, and we're like, oh, now you go down this little alleyway, and it's literally, the ground is just wedged. It's just the best game. I can almost every so often imagine the top stand just peering up over the houses and having a look over the top, saying, am I still winning? Yes, Luton, you're still winning. But yeah, bags of character. And obviously not suitable for modern day football. I can understand that. When club media, and I'm not moaning here, by the way, but they have to park in the town centre and drag all of their stuff up. I mean, it's just it's not conducive to modern day football.
You can't imagine Arsenal and Man City when they were in the Premier League and their kind of media departments. You can't imagine how they would have done that, but obviously they must have done. There was lots of comments like that yesterday. Can't imagine Arsenal doing this or.
I love it. I don't like that whole derogatory. You have to go over people's backyards. It's like, yeah, brilliant. It's still, you can't be any more part of the community than literally slap bang in the middle of it. And I feel at Sinsel we're kind of like that, because we've got a school and a community area, and the houses are all there. But Luton's ground is just, I liked it, and I liked the little touches that they had to do for the Premier League. So like in the tech area, in the media area, they had to have monitors for the Premier League. But what it meant was that if you had a seat, you kind of had a monitor, and then there was 2 spaces for laptops. 2 Macs, and they're quite small, wouldn't sit next to each other. So I was working with it on my knee. And again, it's not derogatory. It's that kind of trying to push modern day football into an old football ground. So, yeah. But we're not here to talk about Luton Town and how quaint it is and indulge me yet again on going to the game. We're here to talk about a game of football against, some say, the haves and the have-nots, certainly in terms of budget and wages, but very little difference, I think, between the two teams on the field. Team selection, we will talk about the obvious omission of Justin Obikwu after the break. But other than that, it's pretty much as I predicted, I think, on Thursday, with Freddie leading the line.
Yeah, exactly. In your preview, you said we might go back to our kind of more traditional formation, and we did. I think it always raises a nice question of who's going to play in the 10. Whenever that formation comes out, is it going to be Moylan? Is it going to be Draper? Is Street going to be up top? There's always quite a nice question mark over how that front line is going to line up. But obviously it was Draper up top with Moylan sitting in the 10, with Rico and Street both out wide. I think, obviously, as you said, we'll come on to Justin Obikwu, but it's the first time really the squad has looked light, very light, for a long time. And we know we've got the injuries, but even with those players injured in the past kind of few weeks, that's not really felt much of a problem. But with those loans going back, Okoronkwo, all those kind of Lembikisa going back, it just Yeah, it looked light and it looked a bit of a worry, for the long term. So definitely business that needs to be done in this transfer window, I think.
Yeah, I think for people looking at the squad and saying it feels light, I get that. But I think also when you look at the players that came on, like Lembakisa came on in two Football League games, I think against Huddersfield and against Rotherham for the last 10 minutes. Frankie Okawankwo, let's be honest, when he came on, didn't really do a lot. Scored against Doncaster at the back at early doors of this run, I seem to think. But after that and before that, didn't really impress. For me, Justin Obikwu, which we'll cover, didn't really impress. So whilst it was about getting fresh legs on, I feel that it's kind of exposed something that was already there. In that with the injuries, we have actually lost a lot of key first team players. James Collins would have undoubtedly have played yesterday, whether from the bench or not. Ben House would undoubtedly have played. Adam Jackson would have been in with a sniff. Oscar Thorne, you might have wanted to bring on a little bit later on. Tom Bayliss would absolutely have started, and if he hadn't, he would have come on at halftime when Bartholomew came off. So that's 5 players. And actually, the bench was populated. There was only 2 who stood 0 chance of getting on at all, which was Pardington and Okawoy. And there was 2 that you probably wouldn't expect to see in Monsma and Geacock. So, but we do need, don't get me wrong, we do need additions. And like I said, we'll come on to that. Let's talk about the game, first of all. So Dale, coming away from the game, Dale suggested to me that it was a game of 4 quarters, which I thought felt quite ambitious. And the first quarter belonged to us. I actually thought the first 5 minutes or so belonged to them. I really liked Emilio Lawrence for them, who's on loan from Man City. Cohen Bramall was Cohen Bramall. He was really quick and everyone gets excited, but nothing really happens. Kadua was an absolute monster who shouldn't be playing in League One, in my opinion. But whilst they had good players and they threatened a little bit, we felt our way into the game and then we began to do what we do. Which kind of, I suppose, really the first major talking point was the goal on 11 minutes. Rob Freddie Draper, who I was absolutely delighted for with the finish, but it was all about Jack Moylan's cross for me. Really well worked, clever cross. Yeah,
it was, and I completely agree with you. I think those first opening minutes, you just sort of thought, oh, hang on a minute, I think now. Well, certainly I kind of have this confidence around Lincoln City, and I kind of have this belief that we're going to turn up, especially in those opening minutes, and we're going to put in a decent performance. But Luton looked, you knew they could be dangerous from those opening few minutes, and they moved the ball well. But yeah, it was us that got on top. And again, 11 minutes, it's an early start. It's exactly kind of what we expect from us. And Chris Lamming did say on the podcast in midweek, if we score first, we could go on and win. So I'll hold him to that. But yeah, it was George Wickens took a free kick actually deep in our half, directly to Moylan, who then it was all about his cross really. I think, like you say, just perfectly placed at the far post, and Draper was there with a clever finish really, because he nods it into the ground, from the away end at Kennilworth Road. It's always difficult to see what's happening at the far end away from you. So it was one of them where the player kind of wheels away celebrating, and then the fans go up because you can't quite tell. But it was a clever header down into the ground, beat the keeper, and delighted for Freddie. Really happy for him. I think we'll probably move on to his performance and talk about that in a bit more detail as we move on, because I thought he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, he was. Let's talk about it now, because we're there, aren't we? When in Rome. I mean, that moment was particularly good for me because it's a finish, but it was his all-round attitude throughout the game. And to be honest, actually, it'll kind of segue us into the second goal, because he was strong and he was bullying players. And I've seen comments on the Luton sites about their number 34 is exactly what we need. And others are going, no, he was an arse. And that's what you want, isn't it? And it felt to me as close to like a young Matt Reed yesterday as anything, in that he was sticking his body in there. He was actually once or twice wrestled off the ball. The lad Anderson didn't know what to do with him. And sometimes it's interesting to have a couple of angles, like the away end see one thing, I was seeing it from another. The monitors were then showing the replay, so those at home were seeing it. Once or twice, like he was literally just manhandled and wrestled to the floor, and the referee's going, no, it's 50-50. I was literally, I couldn't say anything. I'm screaming, it's not in 50-50 at all. And then Naismith does it, and the ref goes, actually, no, that is a free kick. And they're all absolute uproar. that free kick delivered. Tom Heyman nods it in. I think it catches Rob Street on his tab end and goes in the net. Brilliant. But it was typical. Freddie's won that free kick just by doing what he did. And he did that all game. And yeah, sometimes it went against him and sometimes it went for him. And like really late in the game, which I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but where he just throws their keeper to the ground. You know what I mean? It's just like he knows that he's going to deliver quick. He knows they've got quick lads up front. I'm a hypocrite because when Paudie O'Connor did that against Exeter, I said, I don't think any attempt to stop an opponent and not play the ball, I think in every instance, that's a red card. You know, I don't like to see it. I don't like a shirt pull. I don't like an arm pull. Try and win the ball. Fred did that, and inside I'm thinking, yes, get it. And then I'm thinking, oh, Gary, you hypocrite. I'll tell the world about that on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it was a great performance from Freddie yesterday. It was almost a really kind of old school centre forward performance where he's covered in mud at the end. You know, he's put his body on in the thick of it. It was just really impressive to see his strength. And it was interesting actually listening to him speak on the radio after the game. He said something along the lines of, I think I can, I think I can bully. I don't think that's the right word, but I think I'm stronger than any centre half in this league, or I can beat any centre half in this league in terms of kind of his strength, his physicality, winning those kind of aerial duels. And I just thought, for a young lad, really, to have that kind of confidence in himself and his own ability and his own strength coming up against, the Sonny Bradley-esque, shall we say, those kind of grisly, more experienced, older, centre halves that, they're brutes of, and he's come up and going, I reckon I can do them. I just thought, what a kind of, real show of confidence. And you're right, that free kick, it was his strength, completely kind of out-muscled, out-strengthed, got the wrong side of their defender, and he committed the foul, which led to the free kick.
6 goals now in all competitions, but when I say that, dare I say that they're in proper competitions, not Mickey Mouse games against under-21s. It's 2 in 2. It's 3 since the defeat at Wickham, which was our last defeat. So it's 3 in the run. Really happy to see that, but he's not about goals. I don't think when he went to Walsall, he got loads of goals. I get it. But I don't think the way that we play and the way that we utilize him, you're ever going to see Freddie Draper 20, 25 goals because he's about a lot more than that. He could have had a couple more, but he's 21 years old. And, not every striker comes through like Wayne Rooney or whoever else. They don't all burst onto the scene. He's 100 games in at 21 years old. And like you've just said, these bullying grown men. At 21, you're a player. You're a man, aren't you? We're not talking about a kid anymore. But like you say, that confidence, that kind of that'll bring him on. And for me at the minute, I thought about this when I was running earlier. He's now our starting number 9. And Michael Appleton said to me at the start of the 21-22 season, can you pick that name up for me when that I've just dropped? He said to me, if he's not my starting number 9, Lincoln City starting number 9 in 2 years, then we're doing our job wrong. Well, he did his job wrong because he left. Mark Kennedy did his job wrong because he sent him out on loan and didn't play him. Michael Skubala has had him for 2 years and he's our starting number 9. And I think he's just going to get better. I really do.
Yeah, I do. And there was such a kind of, resounding, loud song of "He's one of our own," which was nice. I think Lincoln fans do have a nice connection to Fred for that reason as well. It was a nice little touch of class.
It was a touch of class, wasn't it? They never did it to Joe Von, and he came from exactly the same team as Freddie Draper, came through quicker and made us £1 million. But comparison is a thief of joy, so we'll leave that be.
I'm sure we'd be singing it now if he sort of made some appearance. He was one of our own. He was one of our own.
There'll be a lot of people claiming it if he moves for 10 million and ends up playing for England. And I like this on Fred, just before we move on. It was a leather ball centre forward. What a great saying that is. He was a leather ball. You could just see that, can't you? This is way before my time and your time, but I could see Freddie Draper going toe-to-toe and trading punches with Norman Hunter like Francis Lee did back in the 70s. Like, he does not give a shit. But yeah, it led to the second goal. Again, Tom Hamer, who I think wasn't far off man of the match yesterday, recycled. Rob Street, right place, right time. You know, he scores penalties, he scores tap-ins, but that's what you want your number 9 to do. And I thought it was a decent outing from Rob. But at 2-0 up that early in the game, it is the first thing I thought was, if we draw 2-2, social media is going to be an awful place to be. Our quarter ended, their quarter started, and that genuinely for probably 45 minutes or so, I just thought Luton looked excellent. I really did. But their first goal's avoidable, isn't it? Because it's a corner where Sonny Bradley nods it out of George Wickens' hands for the corner. And then Kajua is completely unmarked at the back stick. Just wanders in, free as a bird, and nods home.
Yes, yeah. I think at 2-0 up, I put this in the Discord, I was in absolute dreamland at that point. I was just thinking, this is it. This is it. You know, these big games against these big teams that are chasing us down and, you know, all that. And we're 2-0 up. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I was absolutely in kind of, you know, some kind of dream world at that point. But yeah, we certainly kind of had a bit of a back to reality shock with their goal. But yeah, I think it was disappointing. I think for me, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think in that moment between Sonny Bradley and George Wickens, if there's any doubt in either of those players' minds as to what's going to happen or who's going to collect the ball, or they need to deal with it. They just need to deal with it. And that's clearly, you know, what has happened. I think Sonny Bradley's just gone. I'm unsure whether Wickens is going to claim it. Did he call for it? I don't know. So Bradley's just dealt with it. If he hadn't, and there had been a mix-up, which you know might have led to a kind of a Howler-esque goal, I think we would have been, you know, exceptionally disappointed and angry with that. So I think it was that was definitely avoidable, and that was the moment for me where that could have been better. But in the moment, I appreciate, you know, what the defender has to do there.
Yeah, fair point.
Go on.
Yeah. No, go on, you go.
I was just going to say, and then, you know, to concede from a set piece is disappointing because that is kind of what we're good at. That is what we're good at. And I know Luton are good at that too. So maybe, you know, we scored from a set piece. So did they. Does that kind of cancel each other out? I don't know. But it was disappointing. I think Wickens leapt for it, got nowhere near it. There was too many bodies in between him and the ball. So made a little bit of a flap at it, I might say. But yeah, he was free at the back post and just finished it off. So yeah, it was a little bit of a reality check at that point.
Yeah, we've scored 14 goals from set pieces. They've scored 13 goals from set pieces. So, sorry, I lost my feed there. Yeah, to be fair, talking to Dale on the way out of the ground, he basically said about Wickens that it's really hard when you're a keeper. If you go down to collect a ball, it's really hard if you're the keeper to make a real audible kind of noise over the crowd noise and everything as well. So it might just be that Wickens has gone down. He's at lower to Bradley, so noise, the way it travels, if he's right there, it's not as easy to hear. I don't know. But like you said, if in doubt, put it out. It's the first thing I learned when I was at under 13 level, and I used to take it literally, like, I don't know what I'm going to pass to, I'll just put it out for a throw. So yeah,
Always in doubt.
the not. Yeah, always in doubt, always putting it out. Even if I was shooting, I don't know if I'm going to hit the target, I'll just put it out. Yeah, it's the header at the back stick, but Luton are obviously good at that. So I mean, they must focus on getting balls into the box as well. Jack Wilshere obviously seems to think that that's a little bit of a slur, but they've done it 13 times this season and scored a goal. So quite why he then said all we care about is putting them in there, I don't know. Little bit salty, actually, I thought, his comments. The only element of the entire afternoon that I thought was a little bit like, really? Is that what you think, Jack? Yeah. But it gave them a lift, because at that point, at 2-0, there was a moment where something went off. Two of their players were shouting at each other. It was Naki Wells, and it might have been the Dutch lad, Lonwick, I think his name is. I can't pronounce it properly. The one that Rob Street put into the hoardings quite brutally and got booked for.
It looks like Virgil van Dijk. But
yeah, we definitely had, yeah, Virgil van Dijk from Timu. So yeah, they were arguing, and then I think the goal just gave them the lift. I think if they don't get that, it's like Blackpool with the penalty, isn't it? I think if you get to half time at 2-0 and we have that chance to reset, you're going to be okay. But the home team's always going to have a little bit of a spring forward. And like Bloomfield Road's pretty old school as well, sort of as a stadium. And yeah, they get that goal. And then the injury time killed us, because actually he scores 3 minutes into injury time for Timu Van Dijk going down again. He's obviously taken a whack. But Nahki Wells is finished. Like, be easy to blame Wickens, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether that really is his fault. If anything, do you know who I would blame? And Chris might not like me for this. I actually blame Ivan Varfolomiev for it, because he hasn't.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, because he hasn't. It's an interception that needs to be made, and the ball from the back into Wells, I think it was Walsh into Wells, it was too easy. And for me, I wonder if that perhaps Ivan 4 fouls in the first half. He's got his book in. I just thought he was a little bit off colour yesterday. It's a great finish. Yeah, it's a top finish. Yeah,
I think, Ivan stretches for it, doesn't make it. And yeah, that was from where we were behind the goal. You could just, it looked like it went through someone's legs. It didn't. It was kind of Ivan stretching, but that's what it looked like. And while I'm not going to blame George Wickens, because looking at the replays, the ball, it moves a lot and it's right in that bottom corner. But at the time, I thought he should have saved it. And actually, that thought comes from the fact I thought he had saved it. So from behind the goal, that shot comes in. I thought Wickens saved that. Oh, no, he hasn't. It's kept in the bottom corner. So my kind of judgment is, if I think he has, does that mean that he should? And there was just a little bit of, body language. Sort of Sonny Bradley turned and looked at him, and I could be misinterpreting it, but it looked a bit like, he looked disappointed in that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's enough to blame him for it. But at the time, I thought he had saved it. So obviously, when he hadn't, that disappointment is exaggerated. But it's a good finish. I think he had so much space. He had acres of space. Nobody closed him down. Nobody was there to kind of get a block in or anything like that, which we did. Tendai Derrick was kind of the epitome of getting a last-ditch block in. He always seems to be doing it. He did it in the first half. Yesterday, but yeah, no one got there for that one. So it was a bit of a sucker punch, really. And yeah, like you say, if we could have held on to that lead going into half time, it could have been a different story, but we weren't. I think the first half for me, or the first half of the first half, it felt quite scrappy, I think, actually. And a lot of it was kind of those kind of 50-50 duels, second balls, interceptions, jumping on kind of the loose ball, all that kind of stuff. But we were coming out on top on all of those things. So every kind of, two players kind of getting stuck in, and it just looks like a bit of a melee. It would be one of our players that kind of sneaks out with the ball, and you think, how's he done that? Or those interceptions, those blocks, those second balls, we were first to all of them. And then as the half grew on and into the start of the second half, that momentum and that kind of that way the match seemed to completely flip, and they seemed to be first to the second balls. They were coming out of the duels on top. So I think it was quite well balanced, really. We'll get on to the final result at the end, but at that point, I'm thinking, wish we could have held on a bit longer.
Yeah, agreed. I think one thing we should stress as well is when we're saying we're looking at blaming for a goal, we're not. We're looking at we're taking it apart. We're dissecting a goal, and we're kind of looking to analyze it, but we're not looking to say this player's at fault or that player's at fault. We're going to say, could we have stopped it here or there? It's not like the Stockport own goal yesterday where you go, oh my God, so many people are directly to blame. And when we score a goal, by the way, we're not looking at which of the Luton players are to blame for scoring a goal. So we're always looking at it from one side. And maybe if you look from the Luton side, you just go, yeah, Wells has got a lot of time, but he's got a lot of time 20, 25 yards from goal with, you've got to hit the target from there. And when Adam Reach scores a worldie, we're all going, wow, there's nothing they can do about that. What a goal that is. But when Nahki Wells scores a worldie, we're kind of going, well, could we have closed this down? Could we have done that? So, that's a symptom of what we do, isn't it? As kind of podcasters.
It is. And hopefully, people want to hear us kind of dissecting those moments from the game and giving our opinion, because a lot of it is kind of opinion. I think that George Wickens should have saved that, but somebody else might think completely different. rather than just commentating through, what happened. Hopefully people like to hear a little bit of opinion from us on it. Although if they don't, tune out now.
Yeah, well, 116 people right now, 118 people right now are listening to our opinion. So thank you very much for that. And many more at home, of course, if you're listening to this and it's not live. I don't think there are 118 people listening to it while you are. So halftime comes and goes. Ivan Varfolomiev goes off, which I haven't listened to all of Michael's interview. I haven't heard if there was an injury there. My suspicion was it was probably yellow card. And we may have wanted to try and get a little bit of control back by changing something. That's when you've got Varfolomiev and Connor together, we can be a little bit defensive, and maybe with gaps appearing in that middle bit of the park, they were getting a lot of possession in there. So potentially we wanted to try and close that down a little bit. Dom Jeffries maybe a little bit more forward thinking. But first 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of that second half, my perception was we're in real trouble here. They were playing nice football. The crowd were right on it. The referee seemed to clamp down on a few things, and it's not a criticism of him by any stretch of the imagination, but he seemed a little bit sharper. He let their lad get away with a hack on Rob Street right in front of me. I mean, it was late, it was booking, but he's let that go, maybe because he's obviously Street has whacked him into the advertising hoardings in the first half. But actually, when you look at the stats, there we go. Just for Chris fans everywhere, when you look at the stats for that kind of 46 to 60 minute period, Luton had it better, but actually they only had 2 shots not on target with an XG of 0.21 in the first 15 minutes of the second half anyway. So I'm there tweeting this is only going to go one way because the balance of play felt like it was. But actually Lincoln did Lincoln things. We got the blocks in. There was no errors, particularly. It was blocks, it was tackles, it was hard work. We were doing what's put us second, but we were doing it. You expect to have spells. We've said it so many times. When the way we play and the way the squad that other teams have got, you expect them to have spells. You're not going to go to Kennilworth Road and dominate for 90 minutes. And I thought that we managed that really, really dangerous period particularly well, even if through nervous fan eyes we feel, oh God, it was backs to the wall. It actually wasn't.
Yeah, no, I thought, I watched it back today, as I always do before I'm going to come on the podcast. I watch the game back so I can get pick up any bits that I've missed or be a bit more objective about things that when you're in the heat of the away end, you don't quite have that kind of neutral or kind of, you've got your red and white tinted glasses on, haven't you? And watching that second half back, it was just as breathless as when I was sat in the ground, I found. And that's when I knew how it was going to end. I still found it, really kind of breathless. It was quite open. And I think, they did start that second half well. I think, was it Wells had a header from really close range and a free header. He should have done better with that, really. They had a shot just wide. That was probably the only attempts that you'd mentioned. But I think what really stood out to me was I don't think it would have been unreasonable, and I think I would have been fairly okay if we'd have come out in that second half and gone, do you know what? A point here is quite good. Luton are really good at home. We're in a good position in the league. The aim is to not lose these kind of big games and keep the momentum, the unbeaten momentum building. I'm quite happy to shut up shop and just kind of absorb some pressure and just defend like we know we can do and keep a draw. But we didn't do that. Yes, we were under pressure and yes, we defended well, but it wasn't a park the bus situation whatsoever, which I think we may have seen in the past from Lincoln, either on purpose or, I think we've spoken about it before. Sometimes psychologically teams can slip back and start playing quite deep without necessarily being the instruction. Either way, we absolutely did not do that yesterday. So that was really nice to see, quite refreshing. And I think that's probably what led to it being so breathless and such an entertaining game, particularly if you're a neutral and you've not got the, as you say, the kind of fan nerves sitting watching it in the stands.
There was only one passage of play that worried me, and that was, I think there was a corner from a free kick that was given, and then a second corner came in that Wickens punches. rather than catches, and that kind of leads to another one. And Naki Wells is then adjudged to have fouled George Wickens when I think, I can't remember, was it Jordan Clark maybe, scores at the far post. So it looked like a perfectly good goal. I don't know about in real time because I had a girder in front of me like that. When I say like that, if you're listening at home, obviously you don't know what that is. Imagine there's a girder in front of you. It's like that. And then so I watched it back on the replay, and it's like, well, I can't see a foul there. And I thought they were really hard done by. Now I've watched it back in slow motion, and as the ball comes in, Wells and Wickens are close. I've looked at replays that Luton fans have put on. I'm not sure that goal should have been ruled out. I think they scored a perfectly good third goal, if I'm honest.
Yeah. From the away end, you had no idea. You couldn't tell from that far away at all what was happening. The replays on the match replay and the highlights, they don't give a good angle at all to show that. I've also seen the clips on social media from Luton fans, and I also don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we know that the game nowadays, the lightest touch on the keeper is a foul, or the referee gives a foul. But yeah, I think we may have got away with one, to be honest. But I haven't really seen anything that proves one way or the other. But yeah, could have got away with one there.
I'm really pleased because I tweeted earlier in the week that I would not want VAR in League One, and I would rather us lose without VAR than win because of a decision that was given by VAR. So it's easy for me to sit here and go, I'd much rather not have VAR when we've actually scored a goal. Malcolm Johnson saying, did the ball go in off the player's arm? Was it not a foul? Was it a handball when it went in? Which is great because nobody's looking at that. They're all looking at Wickens kind of flapping a little bit. So, but I think the disallowed goal killed Luton off, because I think after that, we were the team in the ascension. We were the team that looked like we were going to win it. The man with the most beautiful hair in Lincoln City history headed and the keeper tipped it over, Riley Towler. It was commented, I think, as Sonny Bradley on media reports. Y-Scout had it as Dom Jeffries, but it's definitely the holy hairband that gets up and tests the keeper. Eric Ring's done an Eric Ring thing and got himself into the area. And generally, those last 10 minutes or so, maybe 15, I think Luton fans thought we're going to lose this. And that was quite unusual. And do you know what I think one of the big factors is? Kicking to your own fans when you're away. And it's what we switched a few years ago. We stopped. We always used to let away teams kick to their own fans in the second half. And we don't do that now. Unless they win the toss, we don't do it. Or unless the sun's out or whatever. And there's another factor. And I genuinely think late on, all that noise in that one corner it almost sucks the play down that end a little bit. So, I genuinely thought we were the team that were probably going to go on and win it in the last 15.
Yeah, I agree with that. The last 10 minutes or so, there was a flurry of long throws, corners, all that stuff that we do so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really, I completely get what you mean. As a fan in that away end, when there's a corner right in front of you in the final few minutes, you're picturing Sonny Bradley heading it into the top corner, running right in front of where you're stood and, really giving it some, and you're giving it back. You're picturing it going, if that happens now, I'm going to have a cardiac moment. And
especially at your age.
Yeah, I'm getting to that age now. But sadly, we didn't. And I think that they, I mentioned earlier, Chris mentioned it on the pod in the middle of the week. They're good at set pieces. And I think they defended our set pieces really well. So many of the balls that came in that were kind of destined for Sonny Bradley's head, Timu, Virgil van Dijk, he was winning most of those. They just kind of coped with it really well, so we didn't get much opportunity, apart from, as you say, the man with the his second best hair, because I'm going to put Justin Walker's hair in there. Another blonde
at the minute.
Another blonde floppy hair.
You have a type.
Maybe that's a podcast for the closed season. Best Lincoln City hair. in history or something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll bank that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an excellent effort, and the keeper just tipped it over. And yeah, you have a real belief that you're going to get something in those moments, particularly as a Lincoln City fan. But like I said, not to be, and I cannot argue with a point at the end of that game. Cannot argue with it. Cannot be upset with it. I think that was a very good result against a very good team who are even better at home.
Yeah, granted, I absolutely agree. You know, maybe towards the end you think our depth is going to cause an issue, but actually we were the ones that were looking like we were going to go on and get it. So as much as we talk about a weak bench, it probably didn't impact us all that much. XG on Y Scout 1.81 for us, 1.71 for them. They did have 7 more shots, but we had 3 on target. They had 5, which is a million miles away. It was just a good blood and thunder traditional football game. You know, it felt like something was going to happen. It felt on 89 minutes. I know we were in the ascendancy, but you thought, well, they could score. When Freddie Draper's thrown their keeper to the floor, they could have scored there. And when Riley Towler said it, we could have scored there. You know, if we'd played for another 45 minutes, it could have ended up 6-2 to them. It could have ended up 5-4 to us. That's kind of how the game felt to me. You know, it did.
I was I was gonna say happened to be stood next to Stu, who does all of our social media here at the pod. Just by chance, kind of walking through the crowd, and then hello, Stu. But I said to him at half time, "There's more goals in this," and there wasn't. So there we go. Shows what I know. But it felt like that kind of a game, didn't it?
It did. So yeah, I think in the end, we're talking there's the conversation. Can you ever be 2-0 up in a game and it be a good point when you've drawn? And I always argue yes. I always say it doesn't matter what happens during the game. What happens is kind of at the end, and we can debate it all we want. We can say we had 5 XG and they had 2, but it was 1-1, so we should have won it. But it was 1-1. And the sort of people that will argue that wasn't a good point because we were 2-0 up are the same people that will argue that XG and game state doesn't matter. All that matters is the result. And they're kind of arguing against themselves, because at the beginning of that game, if you say to me 2-2 away at Luton, you take it. Sure, if they say it on 25 minutes, you don't. But the 25 minutes have skewed opinion. And the fact is, you go away from home, you score those 2 goals. You score those 2 goals in order to give yourself a cushion against teams that are then going to come back at you. And you look at where we have lost leads away from home. Bolton, Luton, Blackpool, all spring to mind. Sorry, my dog's snoring just made me surprise me. All 3 of those games. Yeah, he's bored. Yeah, unbelievable.
He's heckling you.
I know, it's a tough crowd. But they're all games that actually we didn't expect to go and win. When you look down the fixture list at the beginning of the season, you go, they're tough games, take a point there. So retrospectively, when you come to the end of the season, with the benefit of hindsight, you look back and you go, they're good points. Yeah, they were. If we were... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say as well, there's 2 types of game here that come to mind as well, which is you're leading 2-0, you capitulate and get a point. You lose your lead and go away with a draw. Or there's a game where you go 2-0 up and then the other opposition team up their game.
Yeah.
And they pull it back and it's a draw. Same outcome, but I think 2 completely different scenarios that, yesterday was absolutely not a capitulation where we threw away a lead or anything like that. Luton, I think, stepped up and won. They earned their point rather than us losing our 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely makes sense. So I think we're just about coming to the end of part 1, but I am desperately padding because there's a stat I wanted to have a quick look at that I haven't researched myself. That was it. It was looking at the home table in the division, and games where we've gone away and lost a lead include Bolton, who are the 4th best home team in the division, Luton, who are the 6th best home team in the division, Blackpool, who are actually 16th, but at the time when we went there had been on a run of something like 6 unbeaten. So all of those are actually they are solid points. They are. And when you think other teams who are strong in the home table, Bradford, where we've been and come away with something, they're fourth,
Mm.
and we've got a point. Stockport, eighth best team at home in the division. We went away and got 3 points. It's good. It is.
Sounds quite good.
It does sound quite good, doesn't it? I'm pleased my internet's quick enough to allow me to do that now. Right, let's go to a commercial break. Brilliant. Right, there are so many names to go through, but just before I do that, I've got to shut the office door that the dog opened when he came in before he so rudely fell asleep. Hold on.
Okay. I would start doing the comments, but I haven't got the power. I haven't got the same power as Gaz.
Got the same one, sorry.
I was going to say I would start going through the comments, but I haven't got the same powers as you.
I'll have to sort that. We'll have to get a login for like whoever's the co-host, so it's one login on an email, and you guys can just log straight in. Now, the thing with the comments is that they actually go back. There's so many of them. I'm going to have to just skip through. So if I miss you, sorry. But because I scheduled this, and I scheduled it for 7:15, but I did it at 6 o'clock, and the first comment has started at 6:20. So we've literally got an hour's worth of comments from people. And I love it. I love that there's this little community and people will meet and they'll talk to each other here. So Devon in fair play, 6:19.
Wow.
Could have come on 2 minutes earlier, couldn't he? 6:17, 6:17. Evening all, pleased with the point today. Was very light on the bench. Do we expect incomings this week? So we'll come on to that in a minute. So let's have a look. Dave Tuplin, good. Hello. Flossie is on. Hello. I'm going to now scan down to when we actually started. So if you were in the conversation before that, my apologies. Gerard is on. As we rolled the opening intro, we saw Mummy Podcast, one of the Parliament.
Yep.
We're there. Malcolm's on, but he's now gone. Ian Wrigglesworth, who's got the best surname. I wish I'd got a surname with the word. It just rolls off the tongue, that doesn't it?
It does.
Wrigglesworth. Do you know other words I like saying? Shrubbery.
Shrubbery. I like blimp.
Blimp. Oh, blimp. Yeah. I like rubbery shrubbery from Ludlow.
Fair play.
Yeah, there we go. Lynn is on. Hello, Lynn. Ollie is on. And apologies that we're not taking all of the. Oh, it's Auntie Lynn, is it? Okay,
yes,
sorry, I didn't realise.
Another member of Parliament.
I've got an Auntie Linda as well. Apologies that we're not answering the questions. Genuinely, we just don't have time. I'd love to, but we will do another Q&A podcast soon because they go down very well. Richard is in, just shooting down. Like I say, if I miss you, I'm sorry. Daddy Parliament is in. Jonathan, hello. Do you know what? I'm sorry. There's just too many. It's just too many.
All night.
I am so sorry for missing everybody, but we will be here all night. So we'll get that. It's brilliant.
It's amazing, though, guys. It's amazing. Please, we're so grateful for your listenership, viewership, comments. Fantastic.
We really are. It's just we're not getting too big for our boots. I promise you that. Right, 48 minutes. We'll come back on. Hello and welcome back to the Stacey West podcast, which is getting more popular by the day, seemingly, with the number of comments that we just tried to go through at halftime and could not. And I say halftime, but if you're listening at home, we've probably only got about 15 minutes left, so we'd better cover the news. And the big news, obviously, which broke at 5:10 yesterday, was Justin Obikwu has been recalled by Coventry City. Those of you who read the site, and thank you if you do, will know that the rumour, or I say it's more than rumour, it's not barroom chatter, it's reported in different places, is that QPR are going to buy him. I've seen two reports, one at 500,000 up front, another with rising to £1 million. And if I was surprised that Peterborough were willing to pay well in excess of £1 million for Rob Street, and I can see more and more why, but I was surprised. Then I was absolutely, completely and utterly flabbergasted that somebody felt that and there's no slur on Justin at all, but for me, 500,000, £1 million for Justin Obikwu, I thought he had been recalled because they were going to loan him to a top-end League Two club to get regular starts. So for a Championship club to want to buy him for that money, I'm not a football scout, and obviously they teach something at football scout school, which us mere mortals do not get.
Yes, and with Obikwu, I remember when we brought him in, and I guess my impression was that he had good reports from his previous loan, the Grimsby, wasn't he?
Cotto.
And I sort of had an impression that we'd loan him, and potentially, if he does quite well, he could be the sort of player that we could then move to bring in permanently. But with him going for that kind of money, that's ridiculous and absolutely not. He's not. Yeah, that's not something we would ever do. But I'm in total agreement with you. I'm completely flabbergasted by that. I think Obikwu, he showed flashes of stuff that I liked. I don't think he lived up to the expectation and the kind of the talk that came with him. I think Grimsby fans were raving about him. I don't think we quite saw that. Whether that is a factor of appearing here and there, not having full kind of run of games in the team, that kind of thing. But I'm not devastated that he has been recalled from us. I think that the timing's not great because the bench looks light, and what he, maybe he wasn't kind of the quality that we would bring on, but he was fresh legs. He was awkward and a bit of a handful. But to be honest, I think my dad put it best to me yesterday when he said, Obikwu, he's kind of an awkward player. No one really knows what he's going to do next. But the problem is neither does he.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sums him up perfectly, to be honest.
I've said that the same. He's kind of like a slightly quicker, more likable Ollie Palmer. He could go on and have a great career because he's got all of the sort of physical attributes that you want from a footballer. He's quite tall, he's quite strong, he's quite quick. But technically, I think there's some work to be done there. And look, if QPR are paying that money for him, and if we brought him in, there must be something there. So I don't want to be too down on him. But what I'm going to say, I think him being recalled is the best thing that can happen to the football club this transfer window, because we weren't going to sign a striker. Jez and Liam had made, or certainly Jez had made that very, very clear on that transfer window. We're not looking to bring a striker in. We've got Rob Street, we've got Freddie Draper, we've got Justin Obikwu. And when you line those three up together, I'd look and go, yeah, I'd be delighted if we started with Rob Street, number 9. Wouldn't bother me if, Fred, brilliant, starting number 9. Justin Obikwu starting number 9, not for me personally. I'm not just saying this because he's gone. You can listen back to podcasts previous. You can have a read of my write-ups. I genuinely do feel that. But we weren't going to sign a striker, and I trust in the club when they're saying he's good enough to take us through the next 20 games as part of a 3-man strike force, 3-man option. I buy that. Fair enough. I get it. They saw something in Jova Makama when he was 18 to not send him out on loan and to keep putting him in the first team that nobody else saw because they worked with him all day long. Now Justin's gone, we've got to sign somebody. And I just think that's almost like an opportunity. It's like a disaster that turns into a public relations dream in that, oh no, he's been recalled. Now we've got to sign a striker. So all those people going, sign a striker. And we sign a striker. And they'll all go, we've signed a striker. I mean, some of them will then go, yeah, but we'll sign another one. But not the point. We're now going to sign a striker in a transfer window. Let me remind you, this last striker we signed in the transfer window was James Collins. The striker before that was Joe Taylor. We signed Ben House in a winter window as well. We have a decent record of bringing strikers in. In the summer on loan, Dan and Lunderloo, Luke Plange, not so much. But we have a decent record. So I think it can help. It depends if we've got a list and if we've had tentative conversations. My feeling is it's probably going to be a loan player. Probably going to be a loan player who's with a championship club at the minute, who isn't getting much game time, something along those lines. I don't think it'll be an 18, 19-year-old. I think we'll be looking at 23 upwards. We might even be looking at experience, like a James Collins-esque figure. And I'll do the
Collins
research.
Replacement.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. It's almost like Justin going is now we can go out and sign a James Collins replacement, whereas we weren't going to. So I actually don't think it's a bad thing.
No. I think that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the plan of attack is. I think you're right. It does give us an opportunity to bring somebody else in. But yeah, I'm not I think like yesterday, it did, like I say, the bench looking light was a bit of a shock to the system. So the timing isn't ideal for us given where we are with injuries. But like you say, yeah, hopefully we can bring somebody in and bring a little bit of excitement to this transfer window as well, because I think we were all kind of like, wow, we don't really need to do much. So a little bit of excitement, a little bit of, maybe we'll get somebody on deadline day. Just keep us all waiting, keep us all guessing on tenterhooks.
I hope it's late on deadline day because me and Chris don't land from Germany until 12:55 at Stansted. So we won't be doing the live show early doors. So yeah, there we go. But yeah, so it is what it is. People get recalled. I think Huddersfield and Mansfield losing Jamie McDonnell and Leo Castledine, they'll be spitting feathers, and that fundamentally weakens them overall. I think us losing Justin Obikwu is it's you kind of go, well, it would have been nice to have had depth, but if we were to be able to bring somebody in, even if it's not a striker, but if we were looking at a younger player on loan to play out wide, for instance, like an Oscar Thorne cover or something like that, if we can do that before Thursday, the bench changes.
Yeah. If you can do that, it brings, you can push Street into the middle, and then you've got, rather than it being Draper up top and it's always kind of Street out wide, really bringing a wide player, you've got Street or Draper to play in that. You've got two striker options then, rather than your two kind of number 9s playing in your starting 11 in different positions. So yeah, opens up different possibilities, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does indeed. Okay, some more news, and I'm going to there's been a lot of people asking about this. So there isn't actually any news at all, but it's two conflicting reports. You may have seen one, but not the other. You may have seen social media chatter. So yesterday, Huddersfield Town, as predicted by me at the beginning of the season, sacked Lee Grant. I said he lasted 24 days longer than I imagined, because I said gone by Christmas, and he's gone by the 17th of January with Huddersfield in the top 6. So I just, basket case club. I did a TikTok at the beginning of the season about how I disliked Huddersfield and wanted them to go down, and all the Huddersfield fans were like, we're going to bookmark this when we're running away with it. So I may have to revisit some of those comments. So they get rid of Lee Grant midway through reshaping their side, bringing players in. It just such bad planning. At the end of the day, you're 6th and you sign in players, you back in them. Just give him the time, give a manager a season. It's his first job. I don't think he was doing too bad a job. Tough start. But anyway, that's what it is. So then obviously Huddersfield looking for something. They normally find it in Lincoln, be it Sean Rowan or Lass Sorensen or Gary Taylor-Fletcher or Harry Toffolo or Danny Cowley. They normally rob us. Initial reports from Football League World were Michael Skubala was being targeted by Huddersfield. Life comes at you fast, because then not 3 hours after that report, Peter Rourke, I will say trusted journalist, as much as any journalists who peddle nothing but transfer news can be trusted, has said, no, actually, it's Liam Manning, because Michael Skubala is unlikely to leave Lincoln. So just to clarify that, if you're listening to this at home, if you're watching live, Michael Skubala unlikely to go to Huddersfield Town. But it's interesting, isn't it, that it starts that whole debate. We're doing well. This is something that you have to get used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the report that, Huddersfield are without a manager and they are targeting Michael Skubala is absolutely no surprise. I mean, why wouldn't you? Quite frankly, why wouldn't you target, a manager of Michael Skubala's caliber from a team that's sitting second in League One, that's outperforming his budget status by this much? Why wouldn't you be looking at him? But I think I wasn't worried by it, because I just don't think I don't think Skubala would want to go there, first and foremost. You wrote a really good article on your blog, so if you haven't read it, people, head there, because I'm basically going to say all the same sort of things, really. I just think, like you said, the Huddersfield go through managers like there's no tomorrow. That's not stability. That's not a nice working environment. Why would you want to put yourself in that position? Yes, they can offer more money, but I don't think that comes with the stability, the job satisfaction. Skubala's kind of built Lincoln City over the past few years. It's turning into what he wants it to be in terms of a team, why would you leave that behind before the job is done, so to speak? And then my final point is, why would you move? You know, we're in a better position than Huddersfield. We've got a real chance of automatic promotion at this point. Why would you move away from that? And, you know, take a backwards backwards move, or at least a sideways one, for more money. And then, of course, I don't know how it all works behind the scenes, but surely the club would have to agree to let him go as well. Or is it more the manager says, "Look, I want to apply for this job. I'm gone."
I think the way we operate, if Huddersfield came in and he said, "I want to take this opportunity," we let people go, don't we? We do tend to, because it's that we develop players and we develop managers. I don't think there's any way that Michael Skubala goes there. Just since July 22, so since Mark Kennedy came in. So bear in mind, this is Mark Kennedy came in, was with us for a year and a half, left the club. Michael Skubala's come in. So we've had 2 managers since July 2022, excluding caretakers. They've had Danny Schofield, Mark Fotheringham, Neil Warnock, Darren Moore, John Worthington, who was kind of an interim, Andre Breton Arena, Michael Duff, John Worthington, who was then back and wasn't the interim, but was the manager after Michael Duff, and now Lee Grant. Yeah. And it's just like, honestly, it's just crazy. And like Michael, somebody's just said there, Devon's just said in the chat, he'd get monetary backing at Huddersfield. Yeah, he might, but he'd also get a squad that's been built by 3 different managers. Every transfer window, somebody's going out who they spent big money on. I mean, they spent 3 million allegedly on Joe Taylor a year ago, and now they're loaning him out to a divisional rival. There's no stability, there's no planning whatsoever. But if you're Michael, we've met Michael, and everybody in here in the chat right now has heard Michael talk. He's an intelligent man. He's grounded. With Dan and Nick, when they went, and I don't want this to sound disrespectful in any way, but they always say, "We know where we're going." They used to say it about players. "We know where we're going. If the players don't want to come with us, then we'll change them." They used to say things like that because they were going to the Championship. And I didn't think they'd go to Huddersfield at the time, but they did. Huddersfield were in the Championship and we were in League One. Obviously, they'd wanted bigger budget and all that sort of thing, and it just wasn't possible. They were on the rise, and they'd gone as far as Lincoln, I think, as they thought probably they could take us with the budget. Got no argument with that. Fair enough. That's a decision they get to make. Michael Skubala hasn't. And one line I wrote in the article that I particularly liked, actually, I was hoping somebody would pick up on it, is that Huddersfield are a bigger club than us. But right now, we're better than them. We're in a better place. Ownership-wise, we're more stable. We offer a manager, he knows what he's working with, but his hands aren't completely tied. We talk about haves and have-nots. We've paid 6-figure sums for at least 2 players this season. You know, we lose Justin Obikwu. We're not going, "Oh, we'll have to promote from the youth team." We're going, "Right, well, we'll go out and get somebody to cover." You know, we're not being frugal because we're skint. We're being frugal because that's part of the business model. You know, we want to keep a nice, tight squad. That's something Michael wants to do as well. So he'd get big wages, and somebody's just put he'd get like 50 times his wage. That's a bit, you know, they might get 3 or 4 times his wage, but it's also 70 to 80% certain that no matter what happens, he'd be out of a job come May, or he'd be out of a job in a year's time, because they go on to the next plan and they go on to the next thing. Because if 6th is failure, and okay, that's probably underperforming budget by 2 places. It's not a massive underperformance. Yeah, for me, like, I can see why Michael Skubala would go to Bristol City or Preston North End, to almost Oxford United, almost relegation scrap, but you're already in the Championship. You've got something to save. Why would he go to a club that have got no proven track record of having any stability whatsoever, where success is literally either top 2 or nothing, and you know you're not going to get a chance to build? Only Carlos Corberán, I think that's how they pronounce it, is it? Corberán? Only Carlos Corberán has topped 100 games for Huddersfield since David Wagner, who took him into the Premier League.
Yeah.
Just no chance for me. No chance at all.
No. And I think I can't quite remember when the Cowleys went there. I'm sure they hadn't been out of the Premier League that long at that point.
No, that was that season. They'd just come down.
Yeah. So there was kind of this, you know, they've just been in the Premier League, sort of all these players, you know, Premier League players obviously relegation standard, but they were there. So there was that to go with it as well. I mean, I almost have this thought when, our big name players go there as players, because yes, they're getting a big salary, but, and maybe players are in it for, I don't know. But, Sean Rowan, for an example, was probably one of the biggest fish in the Lincoln City pond. He isn't that at Huddersfield. Lasse Sorensen, probably similar, actually. They were both two of our top players. They were the big fish, and now they're not. So I how must they be feeling amongst all that instability? When you look at Lincoln City, the club you've left behind, how must they be feeling? And I also think that, yes, they might, Skubala, if whoever's a manager at Huddersfield will be backed by cash. But is that the kind of team Skubala builds? Just spending money on big money players and putting them together? He is more of a coach. He's more the kind of manager that brings players on. We've seen it in the development of our squad, and particularly the young players. He doesn't strike me as the kind of coach that would maybe thrive throwing big money at big names and trying to piece them together, which seems to be Huddersfield's only plan.
Yep.
So, not concerned.
I agree. I'm not concerned. I think if a mid-table championship team were to come in, I would be. And like I say, I mean, I did some numbers the other day about the sorts of teams that promote from League One and the ones that do well. And I think that the two really are Bristol City and Preston North End are the two that if they came in, you'd have to go with backing, because they're mid-table championship. They're willing to give managers quite a bit of time to settle in, and they're also probably a little bit more open to a style of football that is Michael has demonstrated. And I had this conversation possibly on the podcast last week where we can't label Michael Skubala as a long ball manager. At the moment, he's needs must, in that we do go long ball, we go a little bit more direct, because that's the style that we're building up. That's the profile of player that we can bring in with the budget that we have compared to the people that we're kind of fishing in the same pond as. That's what we have to do. I can see Michael, actually, if he had a bigger budget, creating teams that do something a little bit different. So, when people say his style of football wouldn't suit certain teams, I think if he's in the Championship and you put him in at West Brom, he doesn't play the percentages, the corners, the long throws. He probably does something a little bit differently. There's no proven track record that he can be successful at that. What he's been successful with is what he does at Lincoln. But I think that he could be. But that will put some teams off. Huddersfield fans might say, Michael Skubala's doing a good job at Lincoln, let's do that. But the same Huddersfield Town people were the ones sitting behind me, 17 days ago, going, well, this is just like Tony Pulis' Stoke. So 1 minute it's Tony Pulis' Stoke and they're looking down on it. The next minute they want the guy that's doing it. So are they hypocrites for saying it, or are they hypocrites? I mean, I know it wasn't their board saying it, but are they hypocrites for saying it, or are they hypocrites for wanting it? The hypocrites want whichever way you look at it. So
all I can say is I'm glad I'm not a Huddersfield Town fan.
Yeah,
honestly.
I am as well.
You can throw that into your TikTok.
Yes, put that in your TikTok and smoke it. But mainly because it is going to, at one point, it's got to stop. A team can't keep doing that. They can't keep spending. They can't keep paying $3 million for a player and loaning him out. And they're relying this season. They've relied quite heavily on a loan player, and he's gone. Imagine relying on a loan player when you've got 9, 10, 12 million pound budget, and you're relying on a loan player to do the business for you, and he goes, and you all go, oh no, what are we going to do now? It's because there's no planning. Oh, we'll sign Alfie May because he did well at Birmingham, because he fit the way you play. And you listen to the Not the Top 20 podcast, they say Alfie May's doing well now because now they're playing him off the big lad up front. But why they only just started doing that? They knew what his strengths are when they signed him. It's like Alan Clark when he signed Phil Stant. He was Lincoln manager. It's quite a famous quote in Phil Stant's book. Phil Stant, was relatively well known back then. He'd scored goals, I think, for Cardiff, but I might be wrong. We bring him on loan. He stood in front of Alan Clark. Alan goes, so then, lad, what are your strengths? Why the fuck have you signed him if you don't know his strengths? There's no planning. It's like getting a handful of shit, throwing it at a wall, and the bit that sticks going, that's the best bit. It's just madness.
Yeah.
We're not that. Michael's not that.
No, absolutely not. And it's just not the way to run anything. I mean, look, I'm not a football business person. I'm just a fan that likes to talk about it. But I feel like I know my way around how to, run something. So like
Anything.
when you watch The Apprentice and you just think, I could pull together something that could sell cakes on the street at such and such and know that I'm going to make a profit margin and what to do. It's not a way to do it. It's ludicrous. So yeah, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes.
It's like me getting a podcast and bringing somebody in and having one episode that I don't like and going, right, now you're out. I'm bringing somebody else in. And do you know what I mean? And then go, who's going to do it this week? Well, I'm not going to decide. I just complete disarray. And Michael Skubala, for me, is not that type of person. Famous last words, because famous last words, because he could go there for 5 months and have $1 million in the bank like Danny and Nick did and kind of be set for his family for life. So, yeah. Right. We have once again horribly overrun. How is it that you and I always seem to overrun by about 5 or 10 minutes when actually it's Chris that we thought banged on?
I know, it must be me. I have got one final quick thing I wanted to say. It was just really quick. And I just wanted to say that my birthday coincides with the anniversary, if you want to call it that, of when we beat Ipswich at St Bank in the FA Cup.
Yes.
That was 9 years ago, first of all. Can you believe that? So I just wanted to do a special anniversary mention of that moment. And I did watch the goal back, Nathan Arnold's goal back yesterday, as I always do once a year to commemorate it on my birthday.
Good.
Nice. It's still just as good. So
2 points from that. First of all, it is also very sadly the same day that my dad's older brother passed away. He passed away the night of the Ipswich game because Dad came to watch the Ipswich game with me and then went to the hospital and his brother passed away. So very sad. But I think actually he passed away later in the evening. So I think the anniversary of that's today. My birthday coincides with the anniversary of us beating Billingham Synthonia 1-0 in the FA Cup, courtesy of a Shane Nicholson goal, which I do not celebrate and do not watch back because there were no telecameras covering Billingham Synthonia at the time.
It's not even on VHS, that one.
No, all right. Right. We do actually have one other thing to mention. So quite sad. Angus Kirk on Lincoln City Banter put a message out saying he's reaching out to fellow imps in the football family. His 20-year-old son, McKinns, tragically died just before Christmas. He was 20 years old. He was a season ticket holder from the age of 4 to 17, was a mascot twice and loved an away day. It would mean so much to him if supporters could back a minute's applause on the 20-minute mark of Thursday's game against Burton Albion. So on the 20-minute mark against Burton Albion, please to put your hands together for McKinns Kirk, who passed away just before Christmas at just 20 years old. Is no age. So our condolences, of course, to Angus and to his family, and hopefully people can get behind that. So I think on that note, probably we'll cut the joviality. There will be no jovial, joking outro. We will just say, up the imps.
Up the imps.